Hello, class. This is Mrs. Lewis, and I am podcasting your first lecture, The Introduction to Pediatric Nursing. What we need to understand is that the role of the pediatric nurse, we need to understand who we serve. We must recognize that the child is the center of a larger picture. We have to make sure that we advocate care for our child and everyone involved in the care of the child. What that means is that we are not just giving care to our children and our pediatric clientele, but also their parents and their families. So it's not just the pediatric client, but it's also their entire family, including their parents. Children are not small adults. I want you to understand that. They have absolutely no safety awareness. So when we're talking about peds, I want you to understand that safety is very, very, very important. Even in our other populations who have impaired safety awareness, let's say our geriatric clientele who might have dementia or Alzheimer's, you still don't see those clients sticking forks or other things in outlets. There's things that you don't see them do 90% of the time. Versus our pediatric clients have absolutely not 1 ounce of safety awareness. They will stick things in whatever hole they can find. They will come up with neat games to play with your super glue and things like that. So you as a pediatric nurse are going to have to think of their safety. Make sure we're keeping that first in mind, keeping their side rails up, keeping things away and outlet covers on the outlet, so don't put their crib near an outlet. Keeping one hand on the child at all times when they're on a high surface or a changing table, something like that. If you don't know something, make sure you ask. There is no harm or shame in asking. These are the concepts we'll be covering today in this lecture. The family is who we serve. Understand that we are talking about family-centered care. This is providing care and education to the family and the child. There is no typical family or one mold that will make up a family. The parents are the leadership role of the family, and the function of a family for our child is to provide caring and teaching, to pass down customs and values and traditions, to give and receive love, to prepare that child to become a functional member of society, to meet the child's needs, including protection and financial stability, and to also serve as a buffer between the environment and society and that child. Our pediatric clients are considered newborn to 21 years old. When we are caring, and we are caring in this family-centered care for our client and our child, we must remember that we don't want to separate the families and the child. We want to make it, our priority is make sure that they can stay together. We must make sure that we collaborate with the family to meet the needs of the child. This means that with family-centered care, we must have a good relationship with the family and the child. The family must also have a good relationship with the doctors, other nurses, support staff, physical therapists, speech therapy, occupational, all these other disciplines, we need to have good relationships too. When you are in a pediatric setting, it is important to take the role of supporting the family, support their needs, and to support the different avenues which to help them better. We'll get into that in just a minute. Okay. Key elements here of family-centered care, as you can see, recognizing that each family is unique and that the family influence is a constant in that child's life. So there is an extensive breakdown of what families may look like on page 1710 of your Pearson book. But basically they're talking about nuclear, like your two parents, extended, so maybe grandparents are involved, two career family, meaning both the parents work, single parent, adolescent families, so older teenagers raising babies, foster families, families without children, step families, binuclear. There's all different types, same-sex parents, cohabitating. So you can read about all those. Just understand that there are tons of different makeups of families, and they are all unique. Now, as a pediatric nurse, if you hear someone say, wow, I really like children and I really like peds, but I can't stand the family, so I could really work with these kids, but I can't work with the families. That doesn't make any sense, because that is your job as a pediatric nurse, is to work with the child and the family. You can't help the child if you're not helping the family at the same time. Okay? Also, we need to make sure that we keep in mind the cultural diversity of the family and providing appropriate education for each family, okay? The medical home, as you can see from this little picture, the medical home is a place where a family and child feels comfortable being the center of their care. For example, maybe it's a pediatrician or maybe it's a family practitioner, but maybe the family practitioner says, okay, you're having a lot of ear infections. Let me send you to an ENT. The ENT notices a slight speech delay. They send them the speech therapy. Where are all those disciplines going to come together to collaborate? They're going to do that in the medical home. And whether that be the pediatrician or a family practitioner, like I said before, it's the area where all the other disciplines that are collaborated with, schools and state departments and maybe WIC, it's all kept there. And that's the home base. That's where all the records are kept. That's where all the information about that child is kept, okay? Having a good medical home will help increase the level of care and the outcomes, provide for better outcomes for your client, your pediatric client. So I mentioned earlier about culture and the importance of honoring culture and the family. And culture is a set of values and beliefs and information. This is ingrained in families' lives. It serves as a frame for reference. For children, culture determines foods that they eat and language they speak, maybe clothing they wear, their ideas of acceptable behavior, religious preferences, and their current and future roles. Our job as their nurse is to ask the family how best to honor their culture. It is not okay to assume we know. And the example, and I give this in class too, is what do we know about Mennonite culture? If we just assume we know about Mennonite culture, we would be incorrect. There are Mennonites who have radios in their house but don't drive vehicles and wear very plain clothes and cover their heads. And then there are Mennonites who wear clothes just like the rest of the population and have no restrictions on electricity or media or things like that. So our best way to honor their culture and wishes is to ask them how we can do that for them. You will do a cultural mapping exercise in class, and we will go over that. Next, let's talk about advocating for our client or our child. Understand that when we're saying advocating for the child, we also mean that we need to advocate for the family as a whole. We also need to advocate for the child as an individual. Understand that that might mean referrals, writing to change legislation, For example, the newborn hearing screening that was just recently, and when I say recently, I mean like in the last 10 years, advocated to provide all newborns that screening. Those things like that are included with that. Ethical and legal issues. This is dealing with informed consent and minors. Understand that until a minor is 18 years old, they cannot give informed consent. It will be up to the parent or the legal guardian, but there are some caveats. There are some exceptions. So the exceptions include females can seek prenatal care and contraception without an adult in Pennsylvania. Children can get mental health counseling and treatment. They can get STD diagnosis and treatment and substance abuse treatment. So these are all reasons that they can seek medical help without your knowledge as a parent. Otherwise, they can get what's called emancipation. And emancipation is a legal way to show that they are capable of making informed decisions about their medical care. If a female patient has a child, she's immediately emancipated as an adult if she has her own person to take care of. So those are some of those exceptions. When we continue and we're talking about ethical and legal issues, it's important to bring up the debate on vaccinations. And one of the ethical dilemmas that we will be faced with as pediatric nurses routinely is the choice of a parent not to vaccinate their child. This is largely based on a study done by Andrew Wakefield. This was in 1998. And he authored a fraudulent research paper claiming that there were links between MMR and autism. There were a lot of conflicts, like financial conflicts. He was taking money from researchers. But Dr. Wakefield was a gastroenterologist from England, and he performed very invasive procedures on these children, like colonoscopies and lumbar punctures, and brought a strong case for autism being caused by the MMR vaccine. This was